The wind bit into my face as I staggered into base camp, my pack digging into my shoulders like an anchor. Altitude already clawed at my chest, each breath shallow and sharp. I dropped my gear and looked up. There she was, my guide, Elena, her dark eyes unflinching against the gray sky. She knelt without a word, her calloused hands checking my harness, fingers brushing my waist with steady precision. This climb could shatter me, body and soul, or unearth something raw in the quiet spaces between us. She stood, clipped the rope. "Let's move." Her voice sliced the cold. We started up, the line taut between us. The trail twisted upward through jagged shale, the kind that crunched under boots like brittle bones. Thin air pressed my ribs, forcing me to count steps just to keep pace. Elena led, her stride relentless, pack swaying against her broad back. I watched her calves flex with each push, muscles coiling like cables under worn pants. She didn't glance back, but I felt the ropes pull, a reminder that one slip meant we'd both feel it. Halfway through the traverse, the slope steepened, loose rocks skittering into the void below. My boot caught an edge. I teetered, heart slamming. Her gloved hand shot out, steadying my elbow. Warmth seeped through the layers, her grip firm, but not bruising. "Breathe into it," she said, low and close. I nodded, but my skin hummed where she touched. She moved like the mountain knew her secrets, shoulders rolling under the pack's weight, steady as the ridgeline. Something stirred in my gut, unwelcome, pulling my eyes to the line of her neck exposed by her hood. I shook it off. Focus. That's what I came for. To conquer this. To prove I could handle the edge. We hit a narrow shelf, wind whipping grit into our faces. I misjudged a step, gravel giving way. My body pitched forward, rope jerking tight. Elena's belay caught me, yanking me back against the rock. She was there in seconds, her chest inches from mine as she hauled the slack. Her breath fogged the air between us, warm against my cheek. "You good?" Her eyes searched mine, unflinching. "Yeah." My voice came out thinner than I wanted. She lingered a beat, hand on my arm to check my stance. I could smell pine from her jacket, mixed with sweat. "Your legs," I said, forcing steadiness. "They hold like roots in this slope. Strong." It slipped out, indirect, but her gaze sharpened. She released me, but the air felt thicker. The sun dipped as we crested the ridge, shadows lengthening across the scree. Elena pointed to a flat spot for camp, her finger tracing the horizon like she'd mapped it in her sleep. We unpacked in silence, the tent a small dome against the gathering dark. I drove stakes while she strung the fly, our shoulders brushing in the tight space. Her arm grazed mine as she passed the pole, deliberate or not, sending a jolt up my spine. Inside, the tent felt too close, nylon walls trapping our heat. Sleeping bags unrolled side by side, the floor barely wide enough. Elena sat cross-legged, checking her gear by headlamp light. Her hands moved with quiet efficiency, scars faint on her knuckles. I zipped my bag, pulse still echoing from the slip. The wind howled outside, but in here, her presence filled the space. Solid, unyielding. "You climb like you've got something to outrun," she said, not looking up. Her voice was even, but it landed heavy. I shifted, the bag rustling. "Maybe. Boardrooms get tight. This clears it." She nodded, but her eyes met mine across the dim glow, holding just long enough. The silence stretched, broken only by the canvas flap. I lay back, staring at the tent ceiling, her form outlined beside me. The mountain pressed in, but so did she, her steady breathing syncing with mine, pulling me toward sleep with an ache I couldn't name. Tomorrow's pitch loomed, but tonight, proximity was its own climb. The wind picked up outside, a low howl that rattled the tent stakes like loose teeth. Our sleeping bags lay inches apart on the thin mat, the space between us humming with the day's leftover tension. Elena's scent hung in the air, pine from her jacket mixed with the sharp tang of sweat from the climb. It grounded me, pulling my thoughts from the endless boardroom battles back to this cramped nylon world. I shifted onto my side, facing her silhouette in the headlamp's glow. She was propped on one elbow, fiddling with a carabiner, her fingers turning it over like a worrystone. "Can't sleep?" I asked, my voice muffled by the bag's hood. She set the clip down. Not yet. You? Too much in my head. The words slipped out before I could stop them. In the city, I controlled everything. Deadlines, teams, outcomes. Here, the mountain didn't care about my spreadsheets or my title. It just was. Elena turned her head, eyes catching the light. Tell me. I hesitated, then let it spill. Back home, it's all about holding the line. One wrong move in a meeting and deals crumble. I push harder, stay later, make sure nothing slips. It's exhausting, but it works. My chest tightened just saying it aloud, the familiar grip of perfection squeezing in. She listened, chin resting on her hand, no interruption, no judgment in her steady gaze, just space for the words to land. When I finished, the silence wrapped around us, broken only by the canvas flapping against the gusts. Her body heat radiated across the gap, warm against the chill seeping through the floor. The cold outside faded, irrelevant now, replaced by the thud of my pulse in my ears. I could hear her breathing, even and deep, sinking with mine again. It pulled at something low in my gut, a quiet insistence I tried to ignore. Elena sat up slowly, unzipping her bag a fraction to adjust the padding beneath. Her hand reached over, fingers brushing my arm as she smoothed the edge of my sleeping bag. The touch lingered, a second too long. Her calluses rough against my sleeve, sending a spark up my skin. She didn't pull away immediately, eyes flicking to mine in the dim light. You carry that weight alone too much, she said, voice low, almost lost in the wind. I swallowed, the air thickening. Habit. She nodded, then held out her hand in the lamplight, turning it palm up. A jagged scar ran across her knuckles, pale against her skin. This was from a climb 5 years back. Partner fell, rope frayed on a sharp edge. I caught her, but it cost. Her tone stayed even, but her fingers flexed, tracing the line. Mountains take what they want. Learn to trust the rope, not the words before it. The vulnerability in her voice cracked something in me. She'd built her life around this. Solitary roots, no room for slips. Like my offices, but wilder, unforgiving. Her hand dropped, but the heat from her touch stayed, pooling in my arm. You know that quiet pull, don't you? When survival strips everything bare, and the line between need and want blurs into something intimate, unavoidable. It's there in the shared breath, the brush of skin in the dark. Elena clicked off the lamp, the tent plunging into black. Her form settled beside me, the bag rustling. Get some rest. Glacier tomorrow. I lay there, eyes open to the void, her warmth a steady anchor. The wind screamed on, but inside the silence held us. Close, charged, waiting. Dawn would break soon, pulling us higher, but her eyes met mine as we packed, carrying that unspoken weight like an extra coil of rope. Dawn cracked the sky with pale light, filtering through the tent's frost-laced mesh. Elena was already up, coiling the rope with those steady hands, her breath visible in the chill. Our eyes met as I crawled out, that unspoken weight from the night hanging between us like mist. She handed me a thermos of weak coffee, her fingers grazing mine, brief, but enough to stir the embers low in my belly. We broke camp fast, the glacier waiting ahead, its blue cracks hidden under fresh snow. The terrain shifted as we approached, the ground turning to a vast, rippling sheet of ice that groaned underfoot like a living thing. Elena probed with her pole, marking safe lines, her boots sinking into the crust. Stay on my steps, she said, voice cutting the quiet. One wrong foot, and you're in a hole you can't climb out of. I nodded, clipping into the rope, feeling its tug like a lifeline to her solid form. The first crevasse yawned open without warning, a jagged blue maw slicing the ice, deep enough to swallow light. Elena stopped at its edge, axe in hand, bridging the gap with a snow anchor. Rope's all you've got now, she murmured, turning to face me. Her eyes locked on mine, unflinching. Follow my lead, lean into the line. She stepped across first, body low, hips swaying with controlled power. I watched her core engage, muscles taut under the thin jacket, holding her balance like she was part of the ice itself. It pulled at me, the raw strength in her frame, unyielding against the void. We moved together after that, bodies aligned in the traverse, her hip pressing against mine for stability on the narrow bridge. The contact was necessary, her warmth seeping through wool and nylon, steadying my shaking legs. Each step sent vibrations up the rope, syncing our rhythms, her presence the only thing between me and the drop. Wind picked up mid-crossing, gusts howling across the field, whipping snow into our faces like needles. I froze on a slick patch, boots slipping, the crevasse edge crumbling under my weight. Panic clawed my throat, my mind flashing to boardroom failures, the illusion of control shattering here on this frozen knife edge. I can't, I gasped, body locking. Elena's response was instant. She pulled the rope tight, hauling me back, her body closing the gap. Chest to my back, she wrapped an arm around my waist, grip firm on my hip bone. "Breathe," she whispered, breath hot against my ear, cutting through the roar. "I've got you. Shift your weight, left foot first." Her voice grounded me, low and sure, her chest rising and falling against my spine. The fear cracked open then, my perfectionist walls splintering. "I'm scared," I admitted, voice breaking, the words tasting like ice. Her hold tightened, thumb pressing into my side through the layers. "Good. Means you're alive." We inched forward like that, fused, her deliberate movements mirroring the desire coiling in my throat, tight, insistent, unflinching. She moved with the precision of someone who'd mapped her own edges, every shift of her body a quiet command that pulled me through. Finally, we cleared the far side, collapsing onto firm snow, breaths ragged. Elena unclipped first, but her hand lingered on my shoulder, squeezing once before letting go. "Your core held," I said, meeting her gaze, admiring how her jacket clung to the lines of her strength. "Taut as the rope, kept us both steady." Her eyes flickered, a hint of something warmer breaking through the reserve, but she just nodded, scanning the horizon. Storm clouds gathered fast, dark and heavy, swallowing the peaks. "We descend," she said, urgency threading her tone. "Shelter before it hits." We turned back, the glacier's blue fading behind, but the press of her body lingered, a new reliance etching deeper. The wind chased us down, forcing us closer, her pace setting mine as thunder rumbled in the distance. The descent blurred into a frantic scramble, snow stinging my eyes as the storm closed in. Thunder cracked overhead, the air turning thick with swirling white. Elena's hand clamped my wrist once, pulling me around a boulder, her grip a quick anchor before she released. "Faster," she urged, voice barely cutting the roar. We dropped lower, searching for cover, but the blizzard hit full force. Visibility gone, wind shoving us like an invisible hand. My legs burned, breath ragged, the cold slicing through my gloves. She spotted the overhang first, a shallow cleft in the rock face, half buried in drift. "Here!" she shouted, shoving me toward it. We dug in with axes, carving a rough snow cave, walls curving tight around us as flakes piled at the entrance. The space shrank fast, barely room to sit, our knees knocking together on the packed floor. I stripped off wet layers down to base, shivering hard, while she blocked the gap with her pack and a tarp, the dim light fading to gray. Frostbite nipped my fingers, skin paling. Elena noticed, her eyes narrowing. She scooted closer, the cave forcing her thigh against mine, solid warmth pressing through her pants. Her hands took mine without asking, rubbing life back in, calluses scraping gently. "Too cold," she murmured, thumbs tracing the veins on my wrists, deliberate circles that sent heat blooming up my arms. Her touch lingered, mapping the blue lines, her breath steady against my knuckles. I watched her face, close now, the faint scar on her lip catching the low light. The gale howled outside, rattling our shelter, but her frame blocked the worst drafts. Broad shoulders hunched forward, resilient against the assault. It shielded me, her body a quiet bulwark, muscles shifting under her shirt as she adjusted the block. "Your build," I said, voice thick from the chill. "Holds like this rock. Keeps the storm out." Her eyes met mine, a flicker crossing them, but she just nodded, squeezing my hands once more before letting go. We huddled then, knees to chests, the air between us warming from our shared heat. Breath mingled in the dimness, visible puffs sinking slow. Her thigh stayed pressed to mine, necessary for the narrow space, the contact steadying my shivers. Silence stretched, broken by the wind's wail, until she spoke, voice low. Lost someone up here once. Partner, years back. She slipped on a traverse like today's. Rope held, but the fall broke her. Her words hung heavy, fingers flexing in her lap. After, I stopped climbing with anyone. Mountains don't lie. People do. Her gaze dropped, the reserve cracking, melancholy etching her features. I felt it echo in me, the weight of my own losses, chasing success through empty nights. I've got that too, I admitted, the cave's closeness pulling the truth out. Relationships crumbled under deadlines. Pushed too hard, controlled too much, left me alone in high-rises, staring at city lights that never warmed. Tears welled then, freezing on my cheeks in the cold. Elena reached over, thumb wiping one away, lingering on my jaw, rough pad tracing the line slow. Her touch grounded me, intimate in the tight dark, her eyes unflinching. The storm peaked through the night, our words fading into shared quiet, bodies leaning closer for warmth. Her arm draped my shoulder at one point, accidental necessity, the curve of her bicep firm against me. I leaned into it, pulse thudding, the pull between us sharpening like a ridge edge. Dawn seeped in gray, the howl easing to whispers. We emerged into slanting sunlight, snow crusting our gear, but the cave's closeness clung. Her glances we roped up carrying that raw weight, pulling us toward the next traverse. Sunlight slanted sharp across the snowfield as we roped up again, the cave's shadows still clinging to my skin. Elena's eyes met mine, carrying that raw edge from the night, but she clipped in without a word, her movements crisp. The traverse lay ahead, a knife-edge ledge hugging the cliff face, dropping sheer into the abyss below. Exposure hit like a slap, wind slicing sideways, the rock narrow enough that one misstep meant nothing but air. I followed her lead, boots scraping the ledge, heart thudding with each inch. Elena moved first, body low and deliberate, axe tapping holds into the ice-crusted stone. Her pack shifted against her back, straps pulling tight across her shoulders. I watched the play of muscles there, strong lines bunching under her jacket, holding her steady against the void. The rope between us hummed taut, every pull a reminder of our link. My foot slipped once on loose gravel, sending pebbles rattling into the drop. I caught myself, but the fear lodged deep, my breath coming short. Halfway across, the ledge narrowed further, barely wider than our boots, the cliff curving out like a dare. Elena paused, turning to face me, her dark eyes locking on mine through the glare. Wind tugged at her hood, exposing the curve of her neck, sweat already beating there despite the cold. "Give me your weight," she said, voice steady, cutting through the howl. It wasn't a suggestion. Total trust, right there on the edge, her harness the only anchor. I hesitated, the abyss yawning below, but her gaze held me. I leaned in, fully, pressing into her harness, our bodies aligning close. Her arms encircled me then, one looping my waist, the other bracing my shoulder, pulling me flush against her side. The press was immediate, her heartbeat thudding through the layers, strong and even against my chest. My hands found her hips, gripping the solid curve there, fingers digging into the top muscle beneath her pants. Sweat traced a line down her neck, salt sharp in the air between us, her breath mingling with mine, hot and quick. We froze like that, fused on the ledge, her strength bearing us both. The rock bit into my side, but her hold grounded me, deliberate and unyielding. I felt the heat of her core, the way her thighs braced against the stone, anchoring us. Desire flooded then, raw and electric, shattering the last of my control. Perfectionism crumbling under the weight of her nearness, the unspoken pull tightening like the rope. A rumble echoed suddenly, low and building from the slope above. An avalanche, snow cracking loose in the distance. We stilled, her breath hot on my ear as she whispered, "Don't move." The sound grew, a roar swallowing the wind, white mass tumbling far off but close enough to shake the ledge. Her arms tightened around me, body shielding mine, her hip pressing harder into my side. Time stretched, the world narrowing to her pulse against my ribs, the scent of her skin cutting through the ice. It passed, the rumble fading to echoes, leaving us breathless on the trembling stone. Elena eased back first, her hands sliding to my arms, squeezing once before releasing. But the echo lingered, our connection, electric, pulling us forward. We inched the rest of the way, her lead now feeling like more than guidance, every step synced. Safe ground met our boots at last, a wider shelf where we unclipped, breaths ragged. Elena scanned the horizon, but her glance back held mine a beat longer, the weight we'd shared hanging heavy. The summit push waited above, but that moment on the ledge had shifted everything, drawing us higher, closer. The shelf gave way to the final pitch, a sheer wall of ice and rock that clawed straight up into the thinning sky. Exhaustion burned in my thighs, each step a grind against the slope, the air too sparse to fuel the fire in my lungs. Elena led, her encouragement a steady murmur over the rope's hum. One more hold, lean in, her voice pulling me like gravity. Sweat soaked my base layer, cold against my skin, but I fixed on her form ahead, the pack riding her hips with unyielding rhythm. We hit the crux midway, a bulging overhang where the ice turned brittle, picks scraping for purchase. She anchored first, axe biting deep, then turned, extending a hand down. Up, she said, palm open. I reached, our gloves sliding together in the wet chill, her grip locking firm around mine. She hauled, muscles coiling, pulling me through the bulge until I crested beside her. Her hand lingered on my wrist, thumb pressing the pulse point, deliberate pressure that sent warmth threading up my arm. We paused there, breaths sinking in the wind's pause, her eyes holding mine, dark, unflinching. Higher still, the ridge narrowed to a corniced spine, snow crusting the edges like fragile glass. My foot punched through once, leg sinking to the knee, panic flaring hot. I yanked free, but near the top, fatigue cracked me open. The summit loomed just feet away, but my arms trembled on the last pull, vision spotting black. I faltered, body sagging against the rope, the drop whispering below. I can't, I gasped, isolation crashing in. The city nights alone, high rises echoing empty. My drive for perfection, leaving no room for cracks. Elena was there in an instant, dropping low to pull me flush against her side, her arm banding my waist. Her body pressed solid, hip to hip, shielding the wind as she braced us both. You can, she whispered, close enough that her words vibrated against my temple. I've seen you fight the whole way. The contact grounded me, her frame unyielding, pulling me upright step by step. We crested together, her hand sliding to my lower back, lingering in the push, fingers splaying wide. On the ridge, wind whipped fierce, our shadows stretching long across the snow, merging at the edges like intertwined lines. I leaned into her side for balance, the proximity sharpening everything, the salt of her skin on the gusts, the heat radiating from her core. You're back, I whispered, watching the strain pull her jacket taut, muscles flexing like forged steel beneath. Holds us up, no give. Her breath hitched, a subtle shift, but she just nodded, eyes tracing the horizon. We collapsed at the summit cairn, the world dropping away in all directions, peaks jagged under endless blue, the air knife-sharp. Elena sat close, knees brushing mine, unpacking a bar of chocolate she broke in half. Her fingers grazed my palm, passing it over, deliberate warmth in the cold. Silence settled, broken by gusts, until she spoke, voice low against the void. Mountains became my trust after her. No agendas, no slips in intent, just the climb, the line. Kept me whole when people couldn't. Her words echoed my own hollow wins, the promotions that filled ledgers but not the quiet hours. City lights blind you to that, I said, admitting the crack. Chased control, ended up more alone than the peaks. She turned, gaze steady, the melancholy in it mirroring mine, pulling tighter than the rope ever had. The sun arced lower, casting long shadows, but triumph felt fragile. Descent now, she said, coiling the line, her touch on my harness lingering a beat. We started down, the slope steeper in reverse, new dangers lurking in the softening snow, hidden crevasses, unstable cornices. Her lead felt protective now, the bond we'd forged testing against the slide, every step a reminder of what we'd bared. The descent pulled us into steeper gullies, snow softening under the afternoon sun, turning treacherous with every slide. Loose scree rattled loose, forcing careful steps, my crampons biting just enough to hold. Elena led now, her pace measured, protective, like she carried the mountain's weight for both of us. The rope between us felt different, less a tether and more a thread binding our shared silences. I followed her shadow, watching her boots sink and pull free, her body carving a path through the slush. We paused at a rocky outcrop, breaths heaving, the valley sprawling far below in hazy blues. I reached out, hand landing on her shoulder in thanks, fingers tracing the ridge of her collarbone lightly through the damp fabric. Her skin warmed under the touch, muscle shifting subtly beneath. "You pulled me through," I said, voice rough from the altitude. She turned her head, eyes meeting mine, that reserved depth pulling at me. She sat on a flat stone, uncoiling water from her pack, the flask thudding against her thigh. The quiet settled, broken only by distant meltwater trickling. Her voice came low, cracking the hush. "Guilt eats at you up here." After her fall, I replayed every knot, every call. Should have seen the ice glaze sooner. Voice broke in the quiet, her fingers clenching the flask, knuckles paling. "Mountains forgive nothing." I stopped forgiving myself. Her words hung, raw, the melancholy in her gaze mirroring the hollow I'd buried under deadlines and deals. I sat closer, our knees brushing on the stone. "Your strength unravels that in me," I said, eyes tracing the line of her jaw, the way her neck corded when she swallowed. Perfectionist walls, built them high in glass towers, chasing winds that left me empty. "You make the cracks feel like breath." She nodded, slow, her hand covering mine on the rock, calluses rough against my palm. The contact lingered, deliberate, her thumb brushing my knuckles once. Air thickened between us, charged like the static before a storm, her scent of pine and earth filling the space. Lower down, a strap on her pack loosened, flapping against her side. I reached without thinking, adjusting it, my fingers grazing her waist where the harness met skin-warmed shirt. The touch was light, but her breath hitched, body stilling under my hand. Heat pooled there, her core taut, pulling me deeper into that unspoken need, the way her reserve hid a hunger matching my own hidden wants. She didn't pull away, eyes holding mine, the moment stretching taut. We moved on, the slope easing into talus fields, rocks clattering underfoot. Base camp edged into view, tents like pale dots against the green. But the river swelled ahead, meltwater roaring from the thaw, banking high and fast. Elena scanned it, face set. Last push, rope up, we cross-linked. Her lead pulled us forward, reliance sharpening one final time, the current's pull echoing the draw between us. The river thundered below the trail's end, swollen from the melt, its gray waters churning over boulders like a beast unleashed. Spray bit cold against my face as we neared the bank, the roar drowning the wind's last whispers. Elena uncoiled the rope, her hands quick and sure, clipping us in short. "Plan's simple," she said, eyes on the current. "I brace upstream, you stay tight to my side. Legs linked if it grabs. No space for doubt." Her voice cut steady, but the water's pull tugged at me, mirroring the ache she'd stirred higher up. We waded in, boots sinking into the silt, the chill shocking through my socks. Elena positioned upstream, body angled against the flow, her stance wide and unyielding. I pressed to her side, arm looping her waist, our hips aligning in the rush. She hooked her leg behind mine for stability, thighs entwining under the surface, her muscle firm against my calf. The current shoved hard, cold fingers clawing at my knees, but her frame held, powerful and rooted. Deeper now, water lapping our waists, the force building like a tide. I clung closer, my free hand gripping her bicep, feeling the corded strength bunch under wet fabric. "Your stance," I murmured, breath ragged against her shoulder. "Thighs like anchors in this. Unbreakable." Her breath hitched, a subtle shift, but she just nodded, jaw set, her arm tightening around my ribs to counter the surge. The river peaked mid-cross, a hidden drop sucking at our legs, the pull yanking me sideways. I stumbled, water closing over my chest, panic flashing cold. Elena's grip locked, hauling me back, her body twisting to shield mine. We held tight, fused against the roar, her thigh pressing harder into my side, legs locked in the undertow. The world narrowed to her heat, the thud of her pulse sinking with mine through soaked layers, her scent of wet earth cutting the foam. It released us gradual, the bank rising under our scrabbling hands. We emerged dripping, collapsing on gravel, breaths heaving in the sudden quiet. Elena's arm stayed around my shoulders, heavy and warm, pulling me against her side as water pooled around us. Soaked to the bone, I leaned into her, the chill fading under her nearness, her fingers splaying on my arm, deliberate, grounding. Base camp waited across the flat, fire pit ringed by stones. We stumbled there, Elena kindling flames with practice strikes, sparks catching dry tinder fast. The blaze crackled to life, warmth licking at our skin as we stripped outer layers, hanging them on branches. Steam rose from our clothes, the air thickening with smoke and damp wool. She sat close on a log, our knees brushing, passing me a strip of jerky. Her hand lingered on mine, calluses rough, eyes meeting in the fire's glow. Unflinching. Deep. The pull hit then, raw in the aftermath. You reshape everything, I admitted, voice low against the pop of embers. This mountain, the city waiting below, your presence cracks it all open, makes room for something real. Her gaze softened, that reserved melancholy easing, mirroring the shift in me. She reached over, hand covering my forearm, thumb tracing slow circles on my skin, tender now, no pretense. The touch pulled deeper, gazes holding steady, the subtext closing like a knot tied true. We dried by the fire's dance, touches turning soft, her fingers adjusting my collar, mine brushing her wrist. The flames died slow as night deepened, stars pricking the black above. Silence settled, leading to the quiet under them. Her form beside mine a choice we'd both made, unspoken but certain. Morning light filtered through the tent's mesh, pulling us from sleep with a chill that clung to the canvas. We broke camp in quiet efficiency, folding the nylon tight, the fire pit reduced to cold ash. The rope coiled last, its weight heavy in my hands as I passed it to Elena. Without it, the space between us felt vast, like loss settling in the valley air. She slung the pack over her shoulder, muscles shifting under the straps, her form still etched in my mind from the night's tender brushes, her fingers on my wrist, steady and warm. The trail down wound easy now, switchbacks easing through pine thickets, the river's roar fading behind. Base camp blurred past, tents gone, only boot prints marking our path. At the trailhead, the truck waited, dust-coated and ordinary against the wild we'd left. Gear piled in the bed, but unpacking the harnesses came slow. Elena knelt first, her hands on mine, unbuckling the straps with deliberate care. Her fingers traced the clips, rough calluses grazing my hips where the webbing had chafed, eyes lifting to meet mine in the sunlight. The touch lingered, unhurried, pulling at the ache we'd carried down, her gaze unflinching, deep with that reserved pull. I stood there, harness pooling at my feet, her proximity sharpening everything. Come with me, I said, the words rough, born from the mountain's raw edge. To the city. See if this holds without the rope. She hesitated, fingers stilling on the last buckle, her broad frame tensing under the faded shirt. The wind tugged at her hair, exposing the line of her neck, scarred and strong. Walls flickered in her eyes. Years of solitary peaks, the guilt she'd shared. But then she nodded, slow, the reserve cracking like thin ice. Her hand squeezed my waist once, thumb pressing the spot she'd steadied on the ledge, a quiet yes in the pressure. That weight we shared up there, it's the vulnerability we all crave, isn't it? The kind that strips you bare, leaves you leaning into someone else's strength, feeling their heat against the cold. You know it. That quiet truth when survival blurs into choice. When bodies, once tools for the fight, become anchors for the heart. We loaded the last pack, her body moving with the same unyielding grace that had pulled me through crevices and storms. No longer just survival gear, she stood as the symbol of intimacy I'd chosen. The curve of her shoulders I'd admired on the ridge, the taut lines of her legs that anchored us in the river. Solid, resilient, pulling me toward something real beyond the peaks. She slid into the passenger seat, door thudding shut, and I started the engine. The truck rumbled to life, tires crunching gravel as we pulled away. Her hand rested on the gear shift, brushing mine with each shift. Deliberate warmth, fingers interlacing loose. The mountains shrank in the rear view, jagged lines fading to haze, but her presence filled the cab, steady breath syncing with the road's hum. Future stretched uncertain, city lights waiting with their own edges, but we'd chosen it. Her nod, my invitation. The pull remaining, like rope burn on skin. Her hand tightened in mine, mountains blurring to distant blue in the rear view. If this quiet truth resonates, the weight of vulnerability we all carry, share your story below. Subscribe for more tales of connection forged in the raw.